should have just given me the diagnosis. Like,
yeah, like this is enough information.
It's the most ADHD things anyone's done in their life. The amount of people that have never had sex has gone up through the roof. The amount of people that are single has gone up 88% since 1980. It's not how humans have ever connected with people. What you're essentially doing when you're using these products is overwhelming your brain. It's not normal. I just kept matching people in Copenhagen, and I was like, this is annoying. Like, I'd love to go on a date with you, but I'm just...
So today's guest is Jamie Johnston, the founder of Mattr, who's trying to build a dating app with a difference. Jamie, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
It's funny because we're both neurodivergent and we've had some really interesting chats off camera about our unique experiences, and I'm kind of excited to dig into that. But I guess what really drew me to what you're doing with Mattr is you're building something around vulnerability. And I really want to talk about that because I think there's so much power in being vulnerable. And I want to go into sort of like the features of the app that kind of enable that. But I thought it'd be interesting to, I guess, open this with both of us sharing a little bit of vulnerability, because you have something on your app which is called like the honesty box, right? Correct. How does that work?
Yeah, so the honesty box essentially is a mandatory feature of the product. It's 2 boxes. One says, "You'll love this about me." And I always say, especially as British people, we're not very good at shouting about things that we are good at or what people like about us. And you don't have to be like, amazing pianist or the best chef, but you can just be like, I'm a great listener, I'm empathetic, I'm loyal, good qualities in people. And the second box says, you're going to need to know this. And that really gives you a chance to be very vulnerable, very transparent, and what I like to call just radically authentic about who you really are. And it's mandatory. So no, if you don't fill that in, you don't pass. You don't pass go.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it's mandatory.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point of what we're trying to do, right?
So I thought we could both, and I can go first if you want, share. I think it's sort of like a quirk or an uncomfortable truth or something that you feel like might be a bit of like a orange flag or something like that. And I thought like it's always good to share those on these kind of things, break down the barriers.
Of course. Who's going first?
I can go first if you want.
Go ahead.
Okay, so my like honesty box thing would be like, this year has been one of those years where I felt like everything kind of like crashed in at the same time on me. And it's been really interesting at the beginning of the year when I was going on dates, because you'd go on a first date and someone will be like, oh, so like, how's your year been? Or like, what have you been up to? And in my head, I'm like, well, everything collapsed at the same time, but that doesn't make for like sexy date chat. Yeah. And so it's this thing of like balancing, how much do I share authentically? How much am I putting on like a display or putting on a front of like, you want to put forward your best self, right? But what's been interesting about it is it's been quite a good filter, because while I think this is true with vulnerability, while you'll probably put off more people, right? You're not going to appeal to the masses in the same way as if you just like put on a great front. I think it filters out people, and then the people that you do connect with end up being people that you really, really connect with. And so that's kind of been my like learning this year. But yeah, it's been a bit vulnerable. What about yours? Do
you know what? It's before I start, like that, you've basically summed up the entire point of what we do. And we always kind of say, be for someone, not for everyone. It's better to get 1 match a month and they know like everything about you. So when they meet you, like it's totally more comfortable than it is to get 10 and you've just talked about like pineapple on pizza or dogs and cats. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, so thank you for sharing that. And you've kind of explained what we do. So that's great. Mine's fairly similar. I think, when you're a startup founder, you have to project this kind of position of strength and that everything's all going great. And every single founder I know has this kind of front where they're like, yeah, it's all amazing and everything on LinkedIn is super positive. But every single one I know is like absolutely drowning in stress. And mental health of startup founders has got to be one of the most mentally straining jobs, because you're expected to be the most senior and most junior person in the company at all times. So, sometimes I'll be out in the street handing out flyers, and then like literally the next day I might be speaking at a conference in front of like 200 people. But yeah, I mean, it's just dealing with constant stress, and sometimes I feel like I'm not very present because I'm just that stressed. So it's learning to manage that. So yeah, the past 3 years I've kind of been like, who's really Jamie? Am I always being a founder, or there was life before me, there'll be life after it, and it's kind of realizing who you really are. And so that's kind of been my thing this recent time.
And I imagine it's all consuming, it doesn't really turn off, as everyone always says. And I think what I'd also love to chat about later is like how that interplays with being neurodivergent and being a founder with that as well is interesting. But I'd love to kind of understand, for people who don't know what you've sort of spoken publicly about having autism and ADHD. A lot of people like don't understand what that's like, and also the experiences can be different. Like we both have ADHD. I imagine that's slightly different experiences as well. What is that like for you, and when did you start to realize I don't think I'm the same as as other people around me? And what age was that? When did you start feeling a little bit different?
I mean, I felt different from kind of when I went to like nursery or like preschool or whatever. I mean, my memory doesn't go back that far, but I do remember, as far back as I have a memory, I felt different to my peers, and I would get in trouble a lot. And so a lot of my kind of early childhood memories were getting in trouble from teachers, from parents.
Were you like hyperactive in the classroom?
I would just do things to get like enjoyment. If I could make someone smile or laugh, no matter how I did it, I would say that would be more important to me than getting validation from a teacher or a parent. And so I would do silly things. I would get up in cinemas. I would run around. I remember there's a video of me on VHS where they did this like fake nursery graduation, and they give you like the scrolls, and I'm just like turning mine into a telescope, and like every other kid's just standing there getting the scroll, and I'm just there like trying to make it like it's on video. Only kid in the class doing it. And so I've always felt different because I was always basically told by people in authority that, you know, why can't you be like everyone else? And so I've known since adults have spoken to me basically that I was obviously different.
But did you just see it as being a troublemaker or like not being able to focus? And when did that go from, okay, like I feel different, I'm like messing around a lot, to, oh, this is actually something that is different in my brain and needs to be diagnosed?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly can't get over that no one told me that it had to take me and my whole journey to, you know, to understand what ADHD was, to go and get my own diagnosis, to do everything myself. I mean, it's black and white. Like, it was so obvious, like, this kid was struggling with this condition. Like, why else would I constantly keep doing things? Because that was making me feel normal. Like, I just had this complete dopamine imbalance in my brain where my brain was like, if you don't do this, then you're going to actually feel worse. So actually, I was trying to regulate myself my whole time growing up. And so, yeah, I kind of get asked this question a lot. Would you have liked to have been diagnosed earlier on in your life and been medicated? And I don't really know the answer to it because I don't know what that would have been like. So I never really give like a clear answer on it because I don't know.
It's a weird one because I got diagnosed really late, also self-diagnosed like in my early 30s.
You're same year as me, 31, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't have those behaviors. I wasn't like a rambunctious, disruptive kid at school. If I wasn't interested in something, I'd like totally zone out. Yeah. And all those things, but it didn't display as like classic ADHD.
That's because you're female, right?
Yeah.
That's a really big thing.
Exactly. The feeling when you get diagnosed is kind of mixed because you're sort of like relieved that you're like, oh, okay, now that explains so much stuff that I used to struggle with that other people found really easy. But then it's also like, okay, now I've got this label on it, and I wonder whether it's a little bit self-fulfilling and all of those things. But
I always think it's more like an explanation than an excuse. Like I'm not excusing how I behaved, you know, because I did behave in that way, but I'm explaining why I did it. Yeah. I think that's a really interesting thing for a lot of neurodivergent people to learn. But what you can do is you can say, this is an explanation to why I've behaved in this manner, but you still have to own your actions, like I had to for my whole upbringing, basically, as a kid. You know, a lot of detention, a lot of shouting, a lot of bad reports.
Okay, so you've had these bad reports and attention as a kid, and then you shift into, you know, teenage 20s. How did it start to show up in dating, and when did you realize, like, oh, having this makes dating harder, or like it complicates that?
I think because when you've got ADHD, and I have ADHD and autism, and we'll come on to that, it's called ADHD, and I actually called it, excuse me, AUDHD for ages, and then someone corrected me and I was like, oh, okay.
Well, yeah, actually I'm interested. What does that, explain the combination. What does that feel like?
So when I got diagnosed, so let me take you back to when I was like, I've definitely got ADHD, was when I was 24, and I got through uni, and then I got into this job I absolutely hated. It was literally spreadsheets 9 till 6, like every day.
That's our worst nightmare.
Yeah, it was terrible. I worked in PPC, so if anyone knows what that is, it's pay-per-click advertising. It's literally words on a spreadsheet and how much they cost. You know, my clients were so boring as well, Katie. Like, I had Dino Rod, which was basically British Gas's plumbing service.
Okay, sexy.
So, yeah, like block drains, block toilets. Like, if if the weather ever got cold and people's pipes would freeze, like it'd be like a panic in the office that we'd have to bid higher on blocked pipes and blocked drains and stuff like that. So it wasn't me, and I didn't get through probation, and I really was down about that because all my other friends were like getting through probations, like getting work phones, like being taken places, and I was like, oh God, you know, I mean, was hell on earth to me. And so then I was like, you know, I didn't fit in, and I was like, I really think I've got ADHD, because I just, you know, like all the symptoms, I was reading up on it. So for those of you that don't know, doing an ADHD diagnosis, they give you this, it's basically like multiple choice, isn't it? Of like, how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 5 about this situation? And it's loads of questions. And then they give the exact same thing to someone that's known you your whole life, and ask them to answer it about you. And then they correlate the answers. Now, this was before it was done online, and I got all the answers from me, got all the answers from my mum who did it, put them in an envelope and just put like a second class stamp on it and put it in the post. But this weighed it was like, I don't know, like 60 pages, and it weighed way more than a second class stamp could send.
Yeah.
And so the what's it called? The therapist, the psychiatrist was like, well, I never received your document. And therefore you're going to have to pay to do it again. And I begged my mum to give me the money for this because I couldn't afford it. So she was like, well, what happened with the results? And I just had to lie to her and say, oh, I don't have it. So the shame.
We talked about the ADHD shame, when you do like a little fuck up and then you're so scared about the little fuck up that like it makes it 100 times worse.
Well, I just mean they should have just given me the diagnosis. Like,
this is enough information.
It's the most ADHD things anyone's done in their life. So then I just lived with the fact that like I had this shame about how I'd done this. I was like, I remember going to like the post office being like, please find this thing. Surely it's had a return. They're like, mate, central London. I put it in like Tottenham Court Road. I put it in a Tottenham Court Road post box. And so then from 24 to my diagnosis at 31, I just lived with ADHD. And the reason I got the diagnosis when I was 31 was put on furlough. The company made loads of layoffs when I was working at a startup, went to get a new job. It was a really big job. It was a really big media agency that was starting up a whole new division. And it was like, we're starting this division from scratch. Everything's brand new and we need someone to lead on new business.
Amazing.
And I was like, this is a big job. Like, you know, it's going to be pressure. And I was just petrified about going in there without this diagnosis. And then when I went for the diagnosis, the guy was like, you've also got a condition called ADHD, which is ADHD and autism. And I that was shocking to me, because I was like, and then that made so much sense.
Because I think I know a lot less about autism, and I feel like there's a lot more in the general conversation about it now, but I think there's still a lot of confusion about what it looks like, and what does that feel like for you to have that?
Yeah, it's kind of like being like, I describe it, I'm very high functioning autism. So if you saw me, you wouldn't be like, I'm not like a really high autistic person. And that's why I believe in so much what I do, that I have the ability to talk about these things, but also to be able to be comfortable and talk to you and do things on my own. But, you know, I do have situations where I just don't feel comfortable in them. Like they just stress me out.
Like what kind of situations?
So like it's funny, it's like really big groups of people. But when you're together, like if it's like a nightclub, I don't really mind because I'm just in my own little zone. But imagine being on like for me, my worst nightmare is like a table of 20.
Really?
Like, yeah, my ears start to like really hurt. Like I feel like I actually carry, don't know where they are, they're in my pocket, but I carry earplugs around with me.
Really?
Yeah, everywhere I go.
And is it like the sensory overload?
Yeah.
It's not like a
it's both.
Okay,
yeah. So
really
my ears will actually start to like ring and like it's very, they get very, very sensitive. And there's too many conversations going on that I can hear, and the ADHD in me starts picking up things from different ends of the table, and my body just gets completely stressed and overwhelmed. And that's like a really like autistic thing where I'm just getting the sensory overload of a situation I really don't enjoy. Like a private dining room for someone's birthday with 20 people in like a locked room, that's literally my like hell on earth to me.
That's really interesting. I didn't even know that was. Yeah.
It's too much for my body. It just can't handle it.
In terms of dating, how did ADHD and autism like impact that?
Well, obviously, most of the time when I was dating, because I've been in a relationship for like, for 4 or 5 years. And so it was undiagnosed. I did a piece with the BBC, which was like talking about dopamine addiction. So, you know, if you've got undiagnosed ADHD, you'll look for places where like, where can I get my dopamine?
Actually, I kind of want to chat about dating culture generally. I read this report by Imperial College and eHarmony that was looking into the actual physical problems with modern dating right now, and they were talking about things like cortisol spikes. And I was also interested to learn about like testosterone spikes. So like a match can give you like an up to 25% hit on testosterone, and then like an unmatch or rejection like can deplete it by as much as 25%, which affects things like libido and all those things. And then we're also in kind of like a slot machine mindset where you're kind of like you're getting addicted to it and getting like low mood. And then also, as we all know, you've got this problem with like infinite options and then like finding it hard to commit. And so I think like we all know there's like a lot of issues with modern dating, but what are you learning from your community about this? Like, how broken is it really?
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of things that you've just, and good research, by the way, because a lot of things that you've just spoken about, we really focus on tackling from a product point of view. So behavior is very much affected by the products you use, right? So if you're on a swipe, and I say this because they do hate me, this particular company, but you can work out who it is. We'll call them Fire App. If Fire App gives you unlimited options, you're never happy with the options you get because you know that there's just another one coming, right? And so I'll give you an example, you know, for people that might have not been on a dating app. Let's say you go to a restaurant and the restaurant's got 5 pages of food. You automatically think the food's bad. You just think they're reheating this, it's microwaved, like there's no way they can cook all this food.
It's not specialist.
It's not, yeah. Whereas if you go to a restaurant, it's got 4 mains, it makes you feel wet. You're like, there's fish, there's chicken, there's vegetarian, there's this, right? You're like, this is going to be good quality. I'm much more happy having 4 choices than 40 mains. It's exactly the same with dating. There's no point in giving you, you can go on Fire App and go through 900 profiles. You know, that's completely possible. If your age range is like 18 to 35 or whatever it is, and you've got a 50-mile radius, you can easily do 900 profiles if you've got premium. But what is the point in that? You know, it's a fraction. It must be like, I don't know the exact number, but it's got to be like a tenth of a second that you see someone and you flick it away, right? You haven't had a time to like look at that person, read what they're about, like, you know, all of that stuff is just, it's not how humans have ever connected with people ever in the history of time. So it's not normal for the human brain. What you're essentially doing when you're using these products is overwhelming your brain. And that might be all well and good when you're in TikTok holes and, you know, I'm bad for that or whatever. But that's not human beings. That's just pieces of content, right? That's not actual human beings that are coming up being like, hey, I'm trying to meet someone. So it's a dip for me. It's just the ethics are different. Yeah. You can get your dopamine hits from different things if you want to doom scroll, but doing it with people on dating sites, it just doesn't sit right with me.
And then you combine that with neurodivergence.
It's not how humans have ever connected with people ever in the history of time. So it's not normal for the human brain. What you're essentially doing when you're using these products is overwhelming your brain. And that might be all well and good when you're in TikTok holes and, you know, I'm bad for that or whatever. But that's not human beings. That's just pieces of content, right? That's not actual human beings that are coming up being like, hey, I'm trying to meet someone. So it's a dip for me. It's just the ethics are different. Yeah. You can get your dopamine hits from different things if you want to doom scroll, but doing it with people on dating sites, it just doesn't sit right with me. And then it's like, got to have the wittiest banter, you know, like, but don't rock the boat too much.
Nothing to put anyone off.
Exactly. Yeah. Any perceived blemish, any perceived negativity, it's like, it's just so hyper competitive. So I was like, okay, from the product point of view, how do we make it so it slows people down, takes people time, gets people to read the profile, you know? And I can tell you what we've done in a minute. But then also, how do we create this culture of talking about things that actually matter to people when they start relationships?
So what's your recommendation that you share more polarizing, or not polarizing, but more like
more truth. But you know, we don't have time to go on 3 dates to work out we're completely incompatible because you're a massive extrovert, I'm a massive introvert, or like you know, you really love like this type of thing, I don't, or I've got this opinion on this, that, and the other. Like it's wasting everyone's time. And then what people do is they blame the apps. They go, well, you know, that app shit, because, you know, I went on this date with this guy. But actually, no, your profile basically gave the other person absolutely no information and vice versa. So you were 2 people, essentially strangers, obviously, who've given the most basic level of information, and then you've decided that you should go on a date based on that.
Well, there's apps like Breeze, which Breeze acts as like an intermediary between the 2 of you, and you cannot speak until you go on the first date. And so you're matching on like on what
Yeah.
exactly? It's difficult because if you haven't spoken before, how do you know this person's like not weird or what are those things?
What Breeze have done really successfully is they've monetized dating very, very well. The only other company that have monetized dating well is Raya.
Yeah.
The Raya waiting list is 2.5 million at the minute, by the way. It's, I think I heard a stat age ago, there's more people apply to Harvard and get in than apply to Raya.
Stop.
Yeah.
That's such a good stat.
Yeah. But obviously everyone pays, and because everyone wants to be on it, no one bats an eyelid because they've been let in. Right?
So all you're just seeing is like all this like potential global hot people, which is again feeding into your thing about optionality.
I just kept matching people in Copenhagen, and I was like, "This is annoying." Like, I'd love
is
to go
it
on a date with
Copenhagen?
you, but I'm just.
Okay, so talk to me about what Mattr is doing differently.
So max you'll ever be able to get is 9 people a day from us, which is based on the psychology. If you want to like someone, you have to send a message. You can't just send a like. You have to type to them and say, "This is why I'm messaging you." There's a lot of really cool stuff happening in the pipeline. It's essentially making our algorithm transparent and dynamic. And we're going to be the first ever dating company to do that. So hopefully when
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So what is that going to reveal?
Everyone goes, "Well, what's the tip for my dating profile?" The most important decision you'll make in your entire life is who your partner is. You fill up the profile. Don't write an essay. No one's going to read that. But like, if there's prompts, use the prompts. If there's enough for 6 pictures, use 6 pictures. If you can do video, have a couple of videos in there. You know, people like the sound of people's voices. Have a video with your voice in. But you see so many people that put like the absolute bare minimum to their profile, and then they message you, "I got no matches." What I would do is focus on a real interest or niche that you have, or the type of person you want to meet. I'm just too old, right? I'm not single anymore, but if I was, I'm too old to be going and having 100 million small talk dates over like stuff I'm just not, it's just done for me.
And so you seem to be like building this very much with your community at the heart of it.
Yeah.
What kind of stories have you heard that's kind of inspired you, or any sad stories or like challenges that this audience is really facing?
So when we launched Mattr, I did some research, or we did some research, and I don't know if anyone's got this in their family. I'm very lucky, but my sister's a behavioral scientist, which is very helpful to have in your family if you're going to be starting a business. And anyone that's got a sibling knows if you tell them an idea and they think it's shit, they will tell you it's shit straight away.
Yeah, I have the most direct siblings.
Yeah. So if I was like, "Hey, I'm going to create flying Ubers or whatever," my sister would be like, "Oh my God." So I told this idea. I'm like, "I've got this idea. All the data in the news is saying that everyone's really suffering with loneliness, depression, the ADHD waiting list was 7 years." And she was like, "I actually think that's a really good idea and it'll help a lot of people." And I was like, "Oh my God, validation from my scientist sister." So we had 1,600 people do our survey in 2 days, and it was all unincentivized. And one story really stuck out for me, which was this girl that suffered with real bad anxiety. And she wrote that, "I get told I'm like pretty and attractive all the time. Like I wouldn't class myself as like, you know," again, she's being humble, but she said, "I get attention from men all the time. If I'm on a night out with my friends, I'm the one that always gets the attention. None of my family can get why I don't have a boyfriend. I really want a boyfriend, but I've got such bad anxiety that I just feel panicked about meeting someone one-on-one in this scenario." So she said a story where she had 3 dates, 3 different guys. And every single time she went to, she said, "Some of these I bought new clothes for, I had blow dries for, I got really ready for it. I told myself this is going to be the time." And she couldn't get over the threshold of walking out of her front door.
No way.
And so she used to just lock the door, not even tell these people, but just unmatch them basically, which is obviously a terrible thing to do, and then delete the apps and just sit at home and cry about it. And she did it 3 times in a row. And she's like, "All I want to do is just write on my profile like I suffer with this really bad anxiety about meeting new people, about being judged, and I just feel like if I do that, I won't get the matches." You know, she was always telling herself, "The next time I'll be able to get out the door." And so she's like, "I really would love to have a dating app where I could really just write that down." And that really just, sorry, I've said really loads, which is terrible English, but that for me was like the most gut-wrenching one I read. And there was like, as I said, 1,600. And you would never know this girl was dealing with this, right? Because she masks, she gets matches, she's attractive.
Yeah.
But deep down underneath, she's going through all this stuff.
And what sort of success stories have you seen?
We got an amazing email from a guy called Chris. Really, really, really wanted him to do some press, but he was just like, he had autism and he was like, I'm not comfortable with it. he just sent us an email out of the blue, and it came through to like the like generic email, like info@Mattr, this like a whatever it was. And it was like an essay. It's talking about how he'd given up on dating. He thought like no one would like him for who he really was. He was desperately trying to find someone, but pretended to be someone he wasn't.
Yeah.
He saw my piece I did with the BBC, and he downloaded Mattr and gave it a go, and he matched with, I mean, by the way, anyone that's listening, this is an anomaly, so don't like write a terrible review. This doesn't happen straight away. But on his third day, he got a message from a girl, and he said like he'd never really had like women reach out to him before, basically. And he was talking about his autism in the vulnerability box. She also had autism and felt exactly the same way, and had also seen the BBC article. He said, I saw this in the BBC, I have autism, I'm seeing if this is going to be any different. And she was like, exactly the same as me. They ended up doing like, and he was like, I never thought I'd meet anyone. We both saw the article, so we had the same route in. We both had the same experiences with stuff before. This was the first time both of us were talking about autism, like on our profiles. They started saying, and then he honestly, this email was like this. And he said, we ended up doing like hour-long FaceTimes like before we met, just to make sure we were comfortable with each other. And it was really cool because I was going to ask her if we could FaceTime first, and then she asked me, and I was like, I was literally just about to ask you that. And so they were doing FaceTimes, like marathon conversations. Then they went on dates, and they were like, this must be bittersweet for you because we've both left the platform. But we just like to thank you for creating this, and thank you to the, we've also sent a letter to the BBC to thank them for printing this article, because so that and also it came through on a Friday. So that for us is like winning $1 million contract, because that's exactly why we set it up. And
what's the reality of it like being a leader when you're neurodivergent? Like, not only what's the difficult bit, but also where do you think that gives you an unexpected benefit to leading when you have that?
I'll tell you the biggest pro and the biggest con. The biggest pro is that chaos is like happy place, right? Like, I want a deadline of 40 minutes, not 4 days. Like I was saying to you today, I knew I had to leave the house to get to this podcast at 20 to 11. I started writing a report at 10 o'clock, and I've done about 60% of it. Whereas if you said we're meeting at 1, I would have done 10% of it, because I was like, I'll just push it back. I want something to be needed in an hour, and I will smash anyone out the park. I'm just going to hyper-focus mode. So that's the biggest pro, is that like startup is chaos, and ADHD loves chaos. So that's great. The biggest con is the RSD, which I was just talking about. I
want to talk about this actually, yeah. For people because this was such a light bulb moment for me when I realized what RSD was. For people who don't know, can you explain it?
Rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria. And it's basically feeling everyone hates rejection, but it triggers like a response in people, like a fight or flight response that's much, much more profound for people with ADHD.
Yeah.
It's like someone stabbing you. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. And then you either get kind of like depression, resentment, anger, all come from it. Yeah, your body goes into like, it's being attacked, basically. And so, ADHD people, criticism can really be difficult for ADHD people to take. And when you work in a startup, I would say like 90% of your life is getting told no. And things not working. Like, we'll launch a new feature, no one will use it, and we're like, oh god, like we did all the data suggested that, but then no. Investment, it's not just like, oh okay, like I'm not going to hit target in a corporate job. It's like, we might have to fold the business if we don't get these investors, and that is a constant thing. And I think the worst thing about running businesses, every single day that I've gone to bed for maybe 2.5 years, I've thought about Runway every single night.
And how do you manage that? Because it's just that stress, but also I'm interested because I find rejection sensitivity, it's been such a like lifelong thing to try and manage. For people who like us have ADHD and suffer with that, or just generally people who, as you said, like everyone fears rejection, like how do you manage that and keep like an emotional equilibrium when you've got that stress and that like those no's coming away?
I think it's about getting stressed over things that you can control and not getting stressed over things that you can't control. I can't control if someone wants to invest in the company or not. But what I can do is I can focus that energy into like being more upbeat for the next call, or being like, okay, that didn't work, but can I go back and one thing that I've learned as well is no matter how much someone pisses you off, you can never go back to them and be like angry or like, or passive. A good way of doing it is just being passive aggressive, like, thanks for the feedback. No, it's like, you don't know who that person knows that they could introduce you to. Can I go back to them? Hey, Katie, totally understand. It's a real shame that you didn't want to invest. Is there anyone in your network that this might appeal to? Do you know what I mean? Would you be happy for me to send you a monthly update so that maybe in the future something might pique your interest? Things like that. Focus on what you can control and not what you can't is my RSD message. But RSD sucks. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I really suffer badly with it.
What are you kind of excited about in the next year with Mattr? What's the vision? Where are you taking it?
What we're doing so massive. Like the amount of people that are single has gone up 88% since 1980, right? So the amount of single 18-year-olds, the amount of people that have never had sex has gone up through the roof. And so all these things can be helped by more products that help people get together. And I keep explaining this to people, that the alternative is that everyone's lonely, goes through life alone, which is more dangerous to your health than both diabetes and obesity.
Yeah, it increases your chance of dementia. Things like that. It's crazy. And Alzheimer's, it's mad.
Yeah, I don't want to scare people on this podcast, but like, you don't want to be on your own for your whole life. Then that doesn't mean you have to be with a romantic partner, but you really don't want to be on your own when you get older, because it's just very, very, very bad for your health. Yeah. Worse than being like 20 stone.
I love that you're building and creating something that is genuinely going to help people and focused really on those needs. I like to end these with a little bit of a prompt for people at home to think about or try. If you were to give the listeners who want to reset their dating one thing to try this week, what would it be?
Be for someone, not for everyone. You are unique, you're wonderful, and you should show that. No one cares about these menial things that you're talking about. So just have a real good look at your profile and go, is this really me? You want to be for that one person, not play to the masses.
That's great advice. Thank you, Jamie. Thanks so much for sharing your insights and stories. I think it's going to really resonate with